Yes, I watched the debate. Oh. You know, I had no expectations. How many people watched the debate? Oh, brave, brave. I had no expectations that there would be anything said that was helpful to anybody. I mean, you know, in the working class. These are two tried and tested representatives of imperialism, Romney and Obama, in their own way, you know. Obama in government, Romney as a capitalist, you know. But you know, you just wondered why did Obama let this walking caricature of the bourgeoisie, you know, this let them eat cake, you know, the aristocracy of the 1%, why did he let him babble on about, you know, being nice and liking the middle class and fighting for jobs and the voice of the unemployed? It just had a bizarre quality to it, you know. Why didn't he attack him? Why didn't he talk about Bain Capital and tie him to Wall Street? Maybe he did that a little bit, and, you know, talk about his real program, you know, that they're planning to privatize Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare and public education and almost everything else that workers and poor people have fought for and won over almost a century. Why didn't he raise the 47%? Everybody was waiting. Just find a way to raise 47%, you know. Maybe it was personal. You know, he was tired or distracted, or the duties of office, or, you know, just his style. I'm sure all of that, you know, enters the picture. But that's no excuse. This was political. It was a sign of just how far the capitalist crisis, not just the recent one, which is the most intense and severe and permanent and unprecedented, but the capitalist crisis over a period of 30 or 40 years has pushed bourgeois politics to the right. You know, Obama can't attack Romney too much because some of the things that Romney would do, Obama's going to do it. So he can't say that he's not going to do it. He put himself in trouble. You know, one of the most significant things about the text of what Romney said to the room full of millionaires and billionaires in Florida, where somebody from Mother's Jones taped it, you know, where he made his 47% remark. As interesting as that was, and it was a lot of reactionary, racist, imperialist stuff in that text. I was just reading it a few hours ago. But he said this, and you know, and it was informative how the Democratic Party didn't jump on it. He said about the 47%, those people feel entitled to housing, to health care, and to food, of all things. And imagine that, you know, that they're entitled to food. The next thing is oxygen and water. And, you know, it made me think of something that most people don't know anything about, because right after he said it, it was forgotten. And this was what Roosevelt said. Famous Roosevelt, who saved capitalism by making concessions. That's pretty much, and also, you know, entering imperialist war, which put U.S. imperialism on top. In his final State of the Union address, 1944, he proposed a new economic Bill of Rights. And he used the question of rights. He said workers should have, or people should have, a right to a job, a right to good wages, a right to a home, a right to medical care, a right to education. And after that, I don't know whether anybody ever raised it except maybe in the left sometime, you know. But I mean, it would have been a tremendous ad to, like, arouse the base, so to speak, if they would have put Romney's voice about They think they're entitled to this and that and that and that. And then show FDR talking about what he thought, for his own reasons, that the masses had a right to. But no, they're not going to do that. You notice that Obama and most of the Democrats at his level of the party, I'm not familiar with what people that, you know, in the localities and at the state level say, although I have reason to believe that it's not much different and it's not much better these days, because they've all been pushed into a right-wing program too. He talks about the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans as being that the Democrats are for opportunity. What the hell is that? You know, all these vague terms that are meaningless. They're not even open to interpretation. They defy interpretation because they're transparently hollow. I think that a lot of people, even many progressives in the labor movement and elsewhere, hoped that Obama 4 years ago would sort of be like an FDR. You know, now we know what FDR did. You know, he was clever, and he had to spend some time convincing the imperialist U.S. ruling class that if they did not make some concessions, that they might not be around, because there was a Russian Revolution and there's revolutionary struggles going on, and look at what's happening outside the White House, and so this is in your interest to make some concessions, you know, so just grin and bear it. But the Democrats can't do that now. Obama can't do it, because the capitalist crisis means that they're taking all those concessions back. They're repealing it all. The New Deal. What was it under Johnson? The New Society, the Great Society, whatever it is. They're repealing a century of hard-won concessions. You know, what Obama has that helps him, although it's a double-edged sword, is that he's the first African-American president. And in a manner of speaking, that gives him an edge in terms of deceiving or disarming, for a while, some segments of the working class. Let's face it, most of the black masses are going to give him a pass by virtue of the fact that he's the first black president, and we understand that. See? And a lot of other progressive people are going to feel and act the same way. And I'm not sure whether it's necessarily because they're so excited about the Democrats, or they see some big difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. That may very well be the case when you have a lot of people and a lot of oppressed groups, you know, women, LGBT, and queer people, you know, who, you know, on a nominal basis, on paper, the position of the Democratic Party is different and better. I still think, arguably, that there are a lot of young whites who may not understand racism and national oppression, but you know, they see the fact that we finally have a black president as progress. And you know, it means it's a country and a society that they're comfortable being part of, as opposed to something else that seems representative of racism and reaction and war, etc., etc., etc. I think that's out there, you know. What role it plays is arguable, see. But it doesn't matter who wins. I've talked to some people, some young people, all over the country. We were down at the march on Wall Street South, you know, and I was surprised. Remember, we had a class on the elections, and more than one of the young people said, maybe it'd be better if Romney won. You know, because at least if he wins, you know, it'll wake everybody up. They won't think that somebody's going to protect them. It'll take them out of their trance. It'll get rid of the problem that the first African-American president represents in terms of just throwing a curb at the masses. You know, and it's an interesting point. We certainly will see. I happen to think that it's not a done deal as much as it does appear, notwithstanding bourgeois media's interpretation of the debates, I still think that either of them could win, but we'll see. But the point is, no matter who wins, we're going to have to be prepared to fight both with equal vigor and militancy. Yes, we have to fight Obama differently. Yes, we have to fight a government led by the first African-American president differently, because he has support amongst the oppressed, especially the African-American community. And so we have to talk a different way. We can't be carrying around caricatures and burning them and being personal. It's much easier to fight a Romney or a Bush or a Bloomberg, you know. All holes, we can pull out all stops. But all it takes is tact. And our tact and thoughtfulness in this respect should not be interpreted by anyone as support for Obama or support for the Democratic Party in some roundabout way or anything like that. We are against them. The Democratic Party is a heavy chain around the neck of the working class and the oppressed, and it needs to be broken. And the longer that it's not broken, especially now, the more trouble our class is going to be in. You know, both parties and both candidates of the bourgeois parties are engaged in a conspiracy of silence. And among other things, on Wednesday night, it played itself out on Wednesday. See, aside from some little tidbits about you would tax the rich, and my taxes are better than your taxes, and my taxes are more middle-class friendly, and so forth. Obama didn't go after Romney on austerity. Actually, if I recollect this right, in a sort of a hypocritical way, Romney went after Obama and said he's going to take, $500 or $600 billion out of Medicare, and jobs. But they're both being very careful about raising austerity. There's a conspiracy of silence to keep that low, because they're waiting until after the elections, and after the elections, whatever party prevails, almost the moment the elections are resolved, the bourgeois media and the whole bourgeois establishment is prepared to generate a crisis, panic atmosphere. We've got the fiscal cliff. We've got the fiscal cliff, which is these mandated cuts of something like $1.2 trillion in the first year or so, which means sweeping cuts to everything. And if we don't agree on a bipartisan package of cuts by January 1st, 2013, these sweeping cuts and tax increases for the working class are going to go into effect, cause a recession, deepen poverty, etc., etc., etc. And they're going to use that as a battering ram politically against the masses. And it's an excuse if Obama wins. Well, we had to do something to stop the clock, to stop the catastrophe of the fiscal cliff, And so the most important thing, and not that we should wait a month until the elections are over. Why do that? The important thing is for the working class and the oppressed and Occupy Wall Street and all the militants to be prepared to open up, or prepare for opening up, a tremendous class-wide struggle against the capitalist crisis, whether it's austerity, whether it's unemployment, which is deepening, despite what they said earlier today about the latest unemployment statistics. Forget about that. That may be because they hired some more part-time workers, or they messed around with the figures. The irony and the contradictions of what's going on between the Democrats and the Republicans. Obama can't even sound like he's fighting for the unemployed, because he has to defend his record of very few jobs. And it hands the Republicans the mantle of saying, we're for the unemployed. It's just mind-boggling. Let me end, comrades, by saying that A year ago today, I think I'm right on this, a year ago today, October 5th, 2011, very important day in New York. It was the first day that the local labor movement, big union, 1199, HERE, you know, the transit workers, the teachers, PSC, actually organized a big labor a big labor march in solidarity with OWS. Remember, we were there in Foley Square? Remember, you could hardly move? That was October 5th, 1 year ago. And it was so tremendous because what had happened, obviously, is that OWS militancy had woken up. Organized labor, not just in New York, but around the country. Flash, you know, ahead 11 months, and you see this tremendous, brave, and relatively victorious teachers' strike in Chicago, where they did the work and won solidarity with the parents and the students, unlike this reactionary union-busting movie that's out, you know, Won't Back Down, which somebody should be demonstrating against. See? And they took the Democratic Party machine right in their face, you know, including Obama's, you know, former chief of staff, in Obama turf, in the base of the Democratic machine, see? But you know what was happening at every level of labor leadership in this country a few weeks ago, when that strike was still going on, whether it was at the AFL-CIO international level, whether it was at the state level of labor organizations or the Central Council level, when they were considering what to do and what not to do to manifest solidarity with this brave strike, which they should have done at least what they did in connection with Wisconsin, if not more, if they really learned the lessons of Wisconsin. The other question that came up is that, yeah, but the elections. We don't want to mess up the elections. So our hands are tied. So send a speaker, send some money, send a donation, maybe have a press conference. In other words, do nothing, because the elections take priority. That is why, as we prepare with others for opening up an unprecedented class-wide struggle against the capitalist crisis, and we're going to be doing that with our allies and friends through the project of the People's Power Assemblies, which, even though they haven't been completely launched, are already gaining interest and some momentum in some regions of the country. One of the biggest goals of the People's Power Assemblies is going to be to help break the chains that the Democratic Party has on the organized labor movement and the working class in this country, so they can fight in their own interest the way they need to.